Welcome to Black Belt Selling with Stephanie and Anna Scheller. I'm Anna.
And I'm Stephanie.
We're a mother-daughter team who are passionate about helping you grow your business by growing your ability to get more sales. You can learn more about us by going to our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Black Belt Selling. There you can learn more about us. You can interact with some of our guests and some other cool people that we have in the group. More importantly, you'll know when these podcasts go live. So go to facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. And this is actually a very special episode of Black Belt Selling. It was 4 years ago this month, Stephanie, that you and I took the leap and became podcasters. And to be honest, we didn't know a thing of what we were doing, did we?
No, and I don't think we were calling it podcasting at the time. I think we were just interviewing or something. It wasn't a podcast. It was just a weekly call.
It was Blog Talk Radio. We started on Blog Talk Radio. Yeah.
We started on Start Meeting. It wasn't even a broadcast. We were just recording on Start Meeting at first.
Then
Blog Talk Radio. Wow, we've grown.
Yeah, we really have. We really have. And it's fitting that we should be celebrating right after I attended a podcasters conference. So learned a lot, made a lot of really cool connections. So we've got people just chomping at the bit to share their expertise with our listeners. So be looking for some really cool people. But let's stick to today's episode because I went through and I picked some of the best episodes that we had with some of the we had a lot of cool guests, so I can't say that one was better than the other, but let's face it, we're talking about Ben Gay III. Ben Gay III, a contemporary of Zig Ziglar. And we're also talking about Mark Hunter, the prospecting master, really. Art Sobczak, so some of you may not know him, but he gave us some really important, thoughtful tips on prospecting on the telephone. Sonny Melendres, well, we're going to do some commentary in between each episode, so listen carefully. And last but not least, so don't hang up, don't go anywhere, because at the end, we're going to share Tom Hopkins. Tom, he was an icon in sales training. So let's talk really quick about Ben Gay. Stephanie, what are some of the things that stood out to you about this interview with Ben Gay?
Well, I mean, anytime you get the chance to talk to a sales icon like Ben Gay, everything stands out, which makes for a very action-packed 30-minute interview. But I loved the fact that he very simply and eloquently hit on the power of referrals, right? This guy did one cold call in his entire sales career, right? And from there, his friend went on and built a highly lucrative sales career through referrals. And I love that it came down to just remembering to ask, because half the time we forget to just make the ask. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that stood out to me, was like, made one cold call and never made another one. And I was just sitting here going, dang it, why didn't I do that?
Well, we want our listeners to hear that part of the interview because nobody can tell it to you like Ben Gay. So listen, and then we'll be back with the next interview.
He went to a Doug Edwards seminar, and Doug Edwards told the referral thing that you're talking about, how you get them to come up with referrals, that you should never leave an appointment without 5 referrals at least, more if you can get them. And one of the great things to leave with is their church directory. If they're active in their church, they hand you that or lend it to you for a day, and you promise to photocopy it and return them to you. You've just picked up 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever referrals. So he said, I was so stupid when I attended that first Doug Edwards thing. And he said, never call on anybody that you don't get 5 referrals. He said, I made one cold call, knocked on a door, made an appointment, came back the next day, and so on. He said, I was scared to death. It's the only cold call I ever made. And he said, but I got 5 referrals, made a sale and got 5 referrals. And then the closest part 2, we go into details about how he explains it to a family and how he's not there, just there for a one-shot thing and so on. And then he asked for the referrals, and he said, I got 5 referrals, I think, 5, 6, 7, whatever. He said, I got 5 or so, I think. And I went and called on those people. And from here, I'm making up numbers now, but from here I got 10 referrals, and from here I got 3, and from there I got 6, and so on. And then I called on them and got their referrals. And the referrals get easier, by the way, in a circle of influence, because once you've been referred around in the circle and you get referred to somebody, they go, oh yeah, I've heard of Ben Gay. Yeah, let me talk to him. Versus it might be a little colder the first time you got referred, or the first time they've heard your name. But anyway, he was in the industry for 40 years. And because he was stupid and did what Doug told him to do, he made one cold call his entire career that first night.
Wow.
Every call he made for 40 years thereafter, you could trace back to through the family tree to that first call. And you could trace that back to Doug Edwards telling him, get 5 referrals. So that's how powerful it can be. And now with the internet and social media and all, it just gets easier and easier and easier. I keep hearing things that Zig and I have said, or Tom Hopkins or Doug or anybody, as old school. There's nothing new about new selling, whatever that is, except getting the prospects is easier. You can far more, but once you come in contact with a prospect, whether it's by email or text or Facebook or knocking on their door or whatever, once you've made contact, either in written or spoken words, you have to build a relationship and sell them.
Well, welcome back. What do you guys think? Isn't Ben worth every single listen, every chance you get?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I love having Ben, and he loves us. So it works out really well.
That helps a lot. So our next guy is Mark Hunter. And a couple of things I loved about Mark was he kind of, I always talk to people about follow up, different methods, different messages, right? Be different from everybody else. And he took it as another way. He said, you know what? Follow up on different days, right? And I love the fact that he broke down how to really truly make follow-up very very simple. I love the fact that he broke down I mean, the guy makes sales so simple, so easy to understand, right? I know simple gets a bad rap sometimes, but y'all just got to listen to Mark Hunter talk about how to sell. It's going to blow your mind.
There's a couple philosophies I have. One, they all subscribe together, but anyway, one philosophy is this. Whatever you feel is the frequency you can follow up with somebody, you can double that. In other words, well, I can only call them twice a month. Well, then you know what? You can call them 4 times a month. Just get in that rule of thumb. But here's the way I like to do it. We'll say I've had a conversation with you. My objective coming out of that conversation is to have a next step. My objective would be to have a time set up for the next conversation or something like that. Okay, we'll say that hasn't happened. We'll say call hasn't gone anywhere. The speed with which I call you back is going to depend upon the product or service you sell and who you're selling to. Let me give you 2 examples. I do a lot of work in the industrial sales arena. Okay, these are companies that sell industrial supplies to contractors, et cetera, et cetera. I tell those people, you can call that person back tomorrow because you know what? They're buying every day. Every day they got to buy supplies. Every day they're buying something. So I can call them back. I can call them back tomorrow. Okay, you may not have time, but you're going to call them back every other day. That's fine. Conversely, you might have something that you're selling that really the person only buys once a month. And really, it's not like they're a buyer. It's not like they're a buyer. They have a regular job, but they also buy this maybe occasionally. I might call them back every 3 or 4 days. My philosophy, my overall philosophy is what I do is I always wait either 4 to 6 days for the next communication. The reason I go 4 to 6 days is because it automatically flips me into a different day of the week. So if I say, okay, every 4 days, fine. So I'm going to call you, on Monday. I'm going to call you again on Friday. I'm going to call you again the following Thursday. I'm going to call you again the following Wednesday. I'm going to call you again the following Tuesday. Because again, many times when you call somebody, they may have the same schedule kind of week by week. So if I were to call them every, Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, well, I never get a hold of them. Well, that's because every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, they're not in the office or they're not picking up. So I always do my follow-up in a different day of the week and a different time. And don't hesitate. I mean, you might call somebody at 4:30 in the afternoon. And this is, I got to bring this one up. This one's really critical. A lot of people will say, well, I can't call people on Mondays or Fridays. Why? Many times that's just a perception and a belief that people have. Or I can't call people in the afternoon, or I can't call people before 10 a.m. Why? Almost always it really comes down to just that's your own mental block. I know a lot of people. Who they say, well, yeah, it really is weird because in this particular industry, it normally would not seem like I should be able to call on a Friday afternoon, but I do all my cold calling on Friday afternoon, and I always get the people. Conversely, Monday morning, or conversely Tuesday. Don't subscribe. This is one of those myths. Well, the best time to call is Tuesday afternoons and Wednesdays. Well, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make an excuse so you don't have to cold call, so you don't have to call, And I say, just do it. Because here's the whole thing. This is why I really get upset over people saying, well, statistics, or I read a study that says this, read a study that says that. Well, you know what's interesting? It's one conversation.
Mark is a master at prospecting. He's written books about it, and the guy is passionate, and you can hear it in his voice. And thank you, Mark, for joining us for that segment. Now, I didn't know this, but when I invited the next guy on, his name's Art Sobczak. Now, don't ask how to spell it. Just look in the notes, okay? But Art is a master at phone calling, which ties right into prospecting. The thing I loved about what Art said, first of all, we're going to pick up this clip right about when you asked him the question, how do you help people feel good about the phone? And he talks about how we create resistance with our messages. And he talks about rejection. So you want to really listen to what he has to say about rejection and the goal of every call. So listen carefully to Art Sobczak as he shares a little bit about phone calling.
So how do you help people feel more comfortable about picking up the phone? Because this is something we run into, I don't know, I think daily or twice a day is not an exaggeration.
Well, Stephanie, we do it in several ways. One is the mechanics being our messaging, what we say and how we say it. And most salespeople use bad messaging. They use techniques that really incite resistance and cause resistance. And that's a result of either following somebody that didn't know what they were doing, following some old outdated technique, or some strategies such as just go out there and place as many calls as you possibly can because it's a numbers game, and for every no you get, you're that much closer to a yes, which is pretty much garbage. Yeah. And then the other part of it is another myth of sales and prospecting and using the phone, which is you should love rejection. I mean, you've got to get used to rejection. Well, my feeling is let's completely remove the word rejection from our vocabulary, because rejection is not the experience itself, the experience being getting a no. I mean, we're going to get no's if we're playing the game. Baseball players are going to swing and miss. Basketball players are going to swing and miss. Accountants are going to have numbers that don't add up. Those are not all rejections, okay? So if we get a no on the phone, we shouldn't call it rejection. And it just kills me when people say you got to get used to the rejection. No, if I hate something, I'm never going to get used to it. You just can't do that emotionally. So my feeling is let's look at what happens to us a little bit differently. Let's look at it as, oh, that was something that didn't work. Let's figure out what did I learn from that situation, and then we can do something proactively to get a win on every call. Maybe we can leave the door open, or maybe it could be a question that we ask every time. So instead of at the end of a long day saying, I got rejected 30 times, we can say, well, you know what, I accomplished my primary 3 times, and I planted a seed the rest of the time. Pretty good day. Right. As opposed to the person who says, oh, I got rejected 30 times, can't wait to do it again tomorrow.
Art is inspirational. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I really enjoyed that interview. And sometimes I walk in, I'm so skeptical sometimes. I walk in and I'm like, but these guys just blow me away all the time. And this next guy, Sonny Melendrez,
You have a personal connection to Sonny. He's amazing. I would love to have him all day, every day, just spreading his sunshine.
right. Sonny, I don't even know what you say about Sonny other than he's just freaking incredible. Like, this guy is his name. He is sunshine, and he is all about connection, and he has got some serious nuggets from quite a life. So I know our listeners are going to enjoy this one.
And, in the area of sales, especially black belt selling, you find that the people who sell, and they're the top salespeople in any company, are usually the people who have relationships. And they are not selling, but they're serving. And if you serve and set out to serve whoever it is you're wanting to sell to, and you have something that you really believe in, all of a sudden there's a whole different relationship that's going on there. And that person then can be, or even a company can be a client for life, as opposed to make the dollar now and go on and go by the numbers. I don't believe in the number system. In other words, the more cold calls you make, the more times you're bound to hit the mark. I believe in really thinking about who it is you're talking to, what it is you can do for them, and then how it is you can fit into their plan. And if you don't fit, find or suggest somebody who can.
Everything you're saying, and we as black belts, whether you're a black belt in sales or a black belt in the martial arts, the thing is about being in the present, being present to the customer, being present to their needs, being present to the situation so that you can respond appropriately and build the right relationship to help people. Would you agree?
I agree. You're not a robot, And it's so funny. And my wife will tell me, "Why are you talking to these people?" I will get a call from a telemarketer, and it'll be somebody in Taiwan, and they're reading this thing, and so they'll start with their first, "Is this so and so?" And I'll say yes, and then I'll say, "All right, I want you to put down what you're reading. So first of all, I don't want to waste your time. I don't need what you have to sell, but I want you to listen to what you're saying and listen to and say it in such a way that it's your version of it." So I'm coaching telemarketers. but
that's awesome. That's awesome. They need it. They need someone who cares, but they care. You care.
Yeah, and that's what happens is that we tend to memorize our pitch and then deliver it no matter who it is you're talking to. And so consequently, it comes off as just that. If right now I was talking to you and saying all these talking points that I've written down ahead of time, you'd know it. But instead, we're having a conversation, and that conversation is driven by the give and take, not unlike a tennis match. If you hit the ball over there, I've got to go over there. But if you hit the ball over here, then I can stay here. But if I'm just staying in the same spot, I'm never going to return the ball. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's all about now.
Stephanie, one thing about Sonny that we didn't do because we really didn't have the time for it, but I want to encourage our listeners to go back over all of our podcasts and, find these guys, and we'll make sure that gets in the notes. But you want to hear Sonny do some of his imitations. We did get him to do one or two things on the actual show. But the last one that we're going to showcase in this 4th anniversary episode is none other than the icon of icons, the man who probably most people think of when they think of sales training, and that is Tom Hopkins. Tom Hopkins. Tom started in real estate. He was a sales failure and rose to become one of the best. He was selling so much real estate, we even asked him about it if he was in the Guinness Book of World Records. But remember that? Remember?
I do. That was kind of funny.
You know, keep in mind that he had a couple of really important points, and I want you to think about that the art of sales is to become a master asker, not a talking teller. And he really emphasized, you want to hear in his own words why it's important that if you're struggling, if you want to do great, he gives some great advice about how to become great in sales or in any endeavor. So go ahead, listen to that, and we'll be wrapping it up right after that.
So Tom, I got to ask, we've all made mistakes in sales. I think all of us on the call, we've had those moments where we just look back on it and go, oh dear God, what was I thinking? But what were some of the biggest mistakes that you made when you were getting started?
Well, I think when I was new, I thought to be a salesperson, you had to really be talkative. And then I realized the art of selling is more questioning and listening than talking and telling. And so I think that in the beginning, I was trying to fill any void of silence with talk, and I didn't really master the art of asking questions in the beginning. And that's probably my biggest mistake. And then again, as I started finding these mentors, the ones that seemed to be more successful than others said, stop talking and telling and start asking and listening. And so that's when I really said, I'm going to be a master asker, not a talker and teller. And that was very, very impactful in my life.
So that's really, I think, really important. You became a master asker instead of a
talking teller.
Talking teller. Okay, I'm writing this down. I'm just writing this down. Because, one of the things, you talk a lot about mentors, Tom, and we're black belts in the martial arts. And one of the big things in martial arts is that first you have to be teachable, which means you have to listen to a mentor. And you always have to be teachable. You always have to be willing to learn. And, I think one of the hardest things that salespeople struggle with, especially brand new people, is we talk too much. We just try to strong arm people by telling them everything and end up losing the sale.
Definitely. And I like the word teachable, but I use coachable. I feel that the greatest people I've met are always looking for a coach, someone that they can get ideas from. And I don't care what the subject. Years and years ago, I spent a couple days with Bob Hope, the famous comedian.
Oh, wow.
And he was one of my parents' heroes. Of course, many of the folks today are too young to even remember Bob Hope. But, I asked him, I said, I teach people the art of selling, and can you share with me some ideas? And he goes, we're all in sales. If I get up on a stage and the audience doesn't laugh at what I say, I didn't make the sale. So in a way, if people will just open their minds up to the fact that selling is not a pushy, aggressive situation, it's an art form that is very learnable if you are coachable. And again, find coaches that relate to, you feel good about the way they come across with you, and you take their ideas. And I bet I listened to Doug Edwards' records. This is back before we even had cassettes, when I was young. I bet I listened to him hour after hour, and I would take notes. I would write down his phraseology. And of course, all of a sudden it started to become me. And that's when you start really growing, when you internalize what you learn from others And then it's not them anymore, it becomes you. And you become more effective at not only communicating, establishing rapport, helping bring down defense barriers, people that are afraid of being sold, but you develop a way of doing business where people not only want to do business with you, but they'll help you build your business by giving you what I call quality introductions, which are referrals.
It's hard to believe it's been 4 years. It's hard to believe, thinking back on all of the interviews that we've had the pleasure of doing, we have gotten the chance to interview some incredible people.
Yeah, we have.
They say one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And I think that is probably one of my favorite things about Black Belt Selling, is the chance to come on here and teach sales skills and teach sales growth all the time to these entrepreneurs, to these salespeople. And I love that this was a recap of some huge names, and not just big names, because sometimes you can have a big name who doesn't have a whole lot of substance behind them, but big names who dropped real knowledge bombs. And I think that's fantastic. Guys, if you guys are listening to this, if you're brand new or you've been with us for a while, of course, you can join us at the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. The other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is really plug in with us. We have an awesome giveaway, a handout that Anna put together on 31 tips. Is it exactly? It's
31 tips to make more sales. So we're going to get that out to you. So we'll have the link in the notes, because we want you to have it. It's our special gift to thank you for being our listeners. Make sure that you check out the interviews. Most important, join us in the Facebook group, because we would love to interact with you there.
And in the meantime, guys, go out there and keep in mind, just like the Black Belt takes control and takes responsibility, you have control of your life. You have a responsibility to yourself and to those around you to make it something awesome. So go make it a great week.